10, 9, 8, 5, 4. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 23rd meeting of the 144th Council of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas. Another beautiful day out there. Any disclosures of interest from any of the members? Seeing none, we'll go to minutes.
I have a motion that the minutes of the meeting held on May 21st, 2024 be confirmed, moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Peters.
Questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
We'll now move into deputations. We have one deputation with us this evening. Brian Elliott, Executive Director from the Inn of St. Thomas Elgin, will give a PowerPoint presentation regarding an overview and update of progress and innovations at the Inn.
Great. Come on up, Brian. Mr. Elliott, it's always great to have you here to bring good news to us as to what's happening at the inn. So we'll just give you and you go ahead. I think I told you have about an hour and a half.
Well, thank you very much. It's always a privilege to present to your worship and council on things that are happening at the inn. Just yeah. Perfect. All right. Well, once again, thank you so much. The first slide is basically a snapshot of the inn. As you're all aware, we are a 40-bed emergency shelter. We have 10 beds identified for those that are female, 20 beds for those that identify as male, and two different 4 flex spaces, 4 beds, and 1 2-bed flex in a secondary area, which allows us to really meet the changing demands that are happening within the homeless community. We've been able to repurpose parts of the inn to better serve and make sure that we never turn anyone away. So over the past year, we've really taken some strategic changes within our operating and in processing around how we do what we do. A couple of key points from this slide is really around our intake and our diversion. It's really getting to know who the individuals are that are using our services and what their immediate needs are. And also hopefully to dispel the myth that people are getting dropped off at our shelter from other communities. That does not happen. When you look at our stats, we diverted 41 individuals back to either family, friends, or the communities in which they are best served. And so by doing that, we really are serving those from St. Thomas and Elgin. And we really are trying to be what low barrier means, which is not saying no. As we started this, we really said, we want to be housing focused. That was the goal from the very start of the inn being opened. But really, what does that mean? And being housing focused means, how do we remove barriers for those that seek our services? How do we set up the right supports? And in truth, how do we keep them around us to be able to offer those supports? How do we use our flex spaces to make sure those that are even more vulnerable within this community are served in a way that gives them dignity and respect, and that we can build trust and bonds to move them on to that next level? And then we really looked at what's getting in our way internally to make that happen. And from there, we started to look at what's our actual process. How do we really look at when we restrict people from use at the inn? And how do we start making sure that those that even have a restriction have the ability to still come to us whether it's to visit partners or to see the doctor. So really about amnesty processes and things of that nature. When we started reviewing the shelter break, we really talked as a team first. And the reality is, if the client isn't there, we can't help them. And so how do we relook at what those restrictions look like? And part of that reality was some of our restrictions were too long. One night on the street is tough enough, let alone making it more and more. And the longer they're on the street, the harder it is to build that trust again and that rapport to get them to see partners. So let's focus on the health and safety aspect, not just for our staff, our volunteers, but for our clients as well. Part of this also really came about as, we want to strive to be a good neighbor in our downtown. And so by making more of our inn accessible to individuals, that's less people in doorways and in the alleys, and better ways for us to support that community. You'll see when we get to the outcomes page at the end that we really are starting to see a vast difference in restrictions and things of that nature. And you'll also notice in this slide that during cold weather, warm weather alerts, anybody on restriction would be welcome back. So they would still have use of the inn. Again, it's that human dignity part of what we do. We really can't do what we do without our community. We have great support from the mayor and this council, our social services team, and a host of other community partners. It takes a team to make a difference in a community, and we really believe that we're striving to do that. We continue to work on the hub theory of bringing people to us to meet our clients where they're at, and we've continued to drive new partnerships this year and going forward so that, again, the services are there when they need them, because our services don't end at just a bed and a pillow, and it's not just about housing. It's also how do we help them through their mental health and addictions so that when they do get housing, they're successful long-term. When you look at our outcomes, in the past 12 months, we've seen 23% reduction in police calls to the inn, and a special shout out to the St. Thomas Police Services and the implementation of the special constables. They've played a big role with us. We've had 37 individuals housed to date, and that couldn't be done without our social services department, our partners like Indwell, some of our group homes, and even private individuals. 41 individuals diverted. So whether that was to family or back to their communities, every time we can divert someone, whether it's to friends or whatever, each extra day that they spend not at a shelter gives them another chance at finding something that's longer term and more sustainable. 82 referrals to treatment centers, whether that's mental health or addictions. So helping people overcome their own personal obstacles that make it tough for them to either be housed or stay housed. And the 109 doctor visits per month. That's not just for people at the inn. This is allowing our shelter to be open to those that also just live precariously in our community. They might be couch surfing. They may be just one step away from being homeless. The things that we can do upstream to help them stay out of homelessness helps make us even better. And when we talked about restrictions, the number of restrictions not only are going down, but the length of time a restriction has gone down. We start with the premise of go take a walk. When cooler heads prevail, it's a lot easier to find a better solution. And looking at ways where each individual, the restriction can't be the same, depending on what their needs are. And so because of this, we've been asked to do presentations with the city at different municipalities in our area, but as well with the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness, their centers of practice to see how we've really changed and rethought our process for keeping people closer to the inn so that we can help them. And then standing still just isn't enough. We have to continue to raise the bar. And so looking forward, there's really a couple of key things that we really want to focus on. And the one is staying nimble to the changes that happen in our community, whether it's low or high acuity individuals. What are the things that we can do to bring services to the inn to continue to help them? Continue to foster relationships, partnerships with organizations that have the same goal of finding housing for those most vulnerable in our community. And for us, it's looking for what are the future needs of our clients and how do we support those? And it's by doing things slightly differently, taking best in class that's happening across this country and bringing it back to St. Thomas so that we will continue to be a best in class shelter here in this city. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate updating on the inn.
Brian, this is all pretty good news. There's some pretty good improvements in there. I'll take questions or comments from council. Councilor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. I actually have a comment and a question. So thank you. You obviously care what you do down there, and it's great to have you in that position. And it's great for our community to listen to you tonight, to know just that you are working at it and things are improving much by all the stats that you give us. So my question would be, how do the special constables fit into your program there? Are they very helpful and do you work with them quite often? So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Absolutely, they make a difference. They have a presence, not just at the inn, but obviously in the downtown. But their ability and their training to connect with individuals that are going through things. So they're more trauma informed, and certainly have done a great job of building rapport with certain individuals in the community. They're great at reminding them of certain things that they need to do and have to do. And so what we've found, certainly in the time that they've been circulating in the area, is that they check in on the inn every day. But they also engage in conversations with those that use our services. So in the past, where some of them may not have been quick to talk to someone in uniform, we have certainly seen a difference. And now sometimes it's just a question about a process maybe, or it's, this is happening, what can I do? So we're certainly seeing them build a rapport with that community and that trust growing.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. So thank you.
And I
Councillor
didn't
Clark.
say it because you wanted to hear it. It's true.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you. I was just wondering if we have the need and whether or not we have the capacity to run a second site. I'm assuming the flex spaces take up more room in the inn and they seem to be of value. And I'm just wondering if we're at the point where we need to start talking about a second site or a larger site.
So at this point, I would say I would be very leery about a second shelter. The flex space, if you ever come to visit our building, the flex space just made really good utilization of the existing space. So in the separate area where the hallway is to allow us, that separation from the others is a perfect fit for that space. We are not at capacity at the moment. We still have some room to grow, but I would say I'd like to see us continue to work on the housing supports and other housing before we build another shelter. We know that shelters aren't the answer. We're the Band-Aid solution. We're the necessary evil in that transition to move them to housing. Great question.
Councillor Peters.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Thanks, Brian, for the presentation. I appreciate the effort that has been made to be good neighbors. And I would just really just continue to encourage you and encourage the residents there to be good neighbors as well too. I think it's, every once in a while we'll hear from a downtown merchant about an issue in the neighborhood. And I think the more that we can stress that, this is all of our community, and just keep pushing that one. My other question, and I don't like the term living in the rough. I don't know, individuals living in makeshift housing. What are there are there individuals in the community that are choosing not to stay at the inn and are choosing some sort of makeshift housing out in the community? And that leads into my next comment, and I would ask staff if they could work with Brian and the inn, and it is the question of storage. I recognize that, individuals that's their life in the shopping cart. And we have a large city parking lot not far away. Is there a way that we can create something like a storage locker where someone could come in and get a key and get a lock from the inn and go park their belongings in a safe storage unit, so that you don't have to deal with that around the inn? So just curious about those that are, living unsheltered in some way, and any thoughts that you might have as to how we can help, keep a really nice, tidy appearance around the place.
So I'll address the first one, those choosing to not come to the inn. I would say that we have certainly seen that change to the better, where individuals that would be frequent campers, we are seeing more and more of them using the inn services from time to time. And part of that is based on the services that we're able to bring to them, their comfort level is growing. And they don't always choose. Sometimes it's their mental health that has them self-isolate. And so as we work with them and can build supports around them, we are seeing some that have never stayed at the inn now starting to come. Starts with a shower, maybe starts with a meal, then some laundry, so we are seeing more and more of that happening. As it relates to the storage and the carts, we think about this one a lot, and part of our concern is those with carts sometimes are hoarders. And so if you build a spot for 10 carts, then tomorrow I'm going to need 15 spaces, and then the next day 20. So it's, I think, how do we better manage what they believe their storage is? Part of it is when they're at the inn, unlike other shelters, they do get a full locker that they're able to store stuff in, as well as they can carry belongings. So we are trying to move more and more to work with them on what's valuable in those carts and getting them those supports. So I'm cautious about just a storage area, because if you see someone with one cart today, they're going to store it, and part of their mental health and is going around and collecting things that they believe are of value. Then you're going to get the second cart and then the third cart. So I think before we go there, I'd give us a little bit more time to continue working on what that may look like in the future. I'll be honest, we have the same thoughts, Steve, around what more can we do to support them in that.
Brian, I'd like to add also, I love the improvements we're seeing in the inn's neighborhood. It was maybe more difficult 2 years ago or 3 years ago in the beginning as to what was happening, but because of the changes to barriers you've done, we've made that a lot more palatable for the neighbors. Is it perfect yet? No, I really am counting on our housing people in this council to carry on housing the numbers that we have. Somewhere around 30 would be an answer at the shelter on any given night or an average night.
Pretty close, 30 to 35, depending
Okay.
on the day. And we have some that'll choose the beds, some that will choose to stay in the overflow space.
Yeah.
But we certainly have some room and appreciate the comments around our building. I'm blessed to work with an amazing team that really believe in the mission, the vision and the values of the inn, and we will continue to drive positive results.
Well, we'll continue to say we want to support you and what you're doing. And let's try and make it so that we have less and less at the emergency shelter as we go forward. It's the best we can offer to you, and thank you for taking on the heavy lifting to make that happen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thanks.
This time, your worship, council will resolve itself into committee of the whole and deal with the following business. First item, strategic direction and development. Under that committee, first item is proposed delegations for the 2024 AMO conference. I have a motion that report CMO 0524 relating to proposed delegations for the 2024 AMO conference be received for information, and further that the proposed delegation requests for the 2024 Association of Municipalities of Ontario AMO conference be received or be approved for submission. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor McCauley.
Questions or comments? Councillor Baldwin Sands, I saw your hand.
Thank you. I sent a request in to proper channels to see if we can add 2 more delegations to this report. Number 1 being the Joint Health Recruitment Partnership of the City and County to meet with Minister Jones about our doctor recruitment program, about the Elgin Middlesex Doctor Medical Association, and about the recent report we just had from the Elgin Ontario Health Team about the number of residents without a family doctor in this community, and how new recruitment of family doctors, because the doctors that are retiring, the new doctors that are coming on are taking fewer and fewer patients, and also having discussions around the international doctors that we are recruiting currently through the SOFRA, which is through the United Kingdom. So hopefully that will be one. And the second would be with Minister Kinga Sharma in regards to infrastructure. As a follow-up to the $200 million that was announced for community center building, and I have many, many questions from the committee regarding this, is because there were no guidelines, there were no application processes put in place. So asking if there can be a layer of funding, is this going to be able to use as a layer funding application? Is it to be used in pre-design? Is it allowed to be used for public consultation, architectural plans, for example, planning updates, pre-shovel-ready consultations, or is it only available for a shovel-ready design? So just would like to know and take letters of support from across this community. And hopefully when the Parks and Rec is going through its refresh as well, we'll have some updates from that. So hopefully we will get those 2 delegations added to the AMO request.
If I can ask a question, what would be our ask of the minister?
For which one?
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure, asking what, because the application process, they've just announced the funding, but they haven't announced any application or any guidelines or restrictions to that money. And therefore we want to use that as the catapult to ask the further questions.
Okay. I worry about us making an ask that isn't a definite, what we're asking for. Because I hate to get a no and have to go back and change that to a yes.
Understood. It's my hope to get a fact-finding mission.
Okay, well, Taylor, can you, I don't know what, we can ask for the delegation, I get that. But in the delegation request documents, it's what are you asking for? So,
Yeah, so the delegation request, so they basically ask you for a background, so context around what the issue is and then what your ask will be. And just to clarify, once you brought that point up, I did look into that fund, and there is a note on the Ontario government website that says guidelines and applications will be open in summer 2024. That was the most information that we've been given so far. But if it is the will of council, happy to bring that forward and bring our plan forward for our hopeful community center.
Okay, and I like the physician recruitment one. We have,
We did bring that forward to Roma in January of this year. So
Right.
we do have all that information already, and we can add the piece from today from Elgin OHT.
okay, and we will have, if I'm right, Councillor Baldwin Sands and Councillor Peters at Amos. So if we get two at the same time and we have to split up, we'll put the right person towards the right one. Two other ones that are not on your list, but I know that you and I have quickly talked about them. One is, and it's partially on here, the Minister of Transportation about the London, the St. Thomas pilot project, busing with Middlesex Connects. The City of London, the County of Middlesex, County of Elgin, and us are hoping to do a joint delegation that London is booking on how to extend the pilot project for that. So that we know that we are doing that too, although it may not be a St. Thomas only delegation. And then one we talked about this afternoon is Planet Youth, which is a youth addiction prevention program that's is coming out. Minister Tabulo has been to Iceland to see the Icelandic model on it. And so we hope to do a delegation of all of the members of Southwest Public Health to Minister Tabulo on this youth addiction prevention program too. So so you know, it's the warden of Oxford, the warden of Elgin, and myself will be, and whoever else is there, obviously we can do that presentation too. So knowing those facts, any other questions or any other thoughts from any of the members as to who else? By Friday at noon, I think we have to ask for our delegations. We've been pretty good at getting delegations. Sometimes they'll overlap. Seeing no more, you've given us this much work. Thank you very much. We'll take it. Taylor, thank you for all your hard work on this so far. No questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
No further items on the agenda unless there are any items from the committee or from council members. Next, we move into community engagement and services. No items on the agenda unless there are any items from the members.
Seeing none?
Next, we move into infrastructure and civic operations. First item relates to free transit for the seniors picnic in the park. I have a motion that report ES 3224 relating to the seniors picnic in the park free transit be received for information, and further the council waive the transit fare for seniors on July 10th, 2024 and authorize the additional bus supply. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Kohler.
Questions or comments? Great idea. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to sewer use bylaw update. I have a motion that report ES 2424 relating to the sewer use bylaw update be received for information, and further the council enact the new sewer use bylaw to prohibit and regulate the discharge of sewage, drainage, stormwater, and industrial waste into the municipal storm and or sanitary system and open water courses. And further that bylaw 205-91 and any amendments thereto be repealed. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. When we review the bylaws, do we do a bylaw just to accommodate now, or do we do something that we want to look 5 years down the road? So we don't have to keep changing them.
I'm going to get the expert from our engineering department to answer that question. Mr. Delovic?
Thank you, Mayor Preston. I'm not sure if I'm the expert or not, but I can advise that this bylaw is 33 years old. So it's time to get it updated. There's been legislative changes since then. So that's kind of the reason why we did the update. And to answer your question about looking 5 years out, we also look out to future-proof our bylaws to try and prevent the number of times we have to amend them.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Clark?
Thank you. I was just wondering how we actually monitor the spills or the violations.
Through Mayor Preston to Councillor Clark, I have here with me our environmental compliance coordinator who does exactly that task. So we're aware of the industries in town that we either have a sewer use agreement with, or that require regular monitoring and follow up with them on a regular basis.
Good.
Supplementary, so we actually do scheduled tests then on the known sites?
Okay, we just upgraded experts.
Oh, sorry. Yes, we do. We monitor monthly or sometimes quarterly.
Counselor Kohler? Don't go anywhere in case we need another expert.
Yes, please don't go, because when you look at the summary of changes, there's quite a lot of information in there, and it's like, how do we get this information out to the public? And it's just curious, like, does any of this, because some of the stuff that I read looks like it might impact or work with people that are blocking off natural easements that flow into different areas and things like that. Does this cover that too, or no? Because the one section kind of looked like it did, but I don't know if you have a quick, maybe brief summary that if people are watching, that they can see what could impact them if they unknowingly are even doing some of this stuff.
Mr. Dealeybeck?
Through the mayor to Councillor Kohler, the blockage of drainage or natural drainage paths are covered either through a site alteration bylaw or through our property standards bylaw. This bylaw is more about the content of that material that would be entering into the watercourse, storm sewer, or sanitary system. So that's where that gets covered off in. High level, this bylaw is updated. We provided a summary of changes just to try to make it easier for everyone to try to follow what has changed. And most of the changes you'll notice are administrative, enforcement related, reporting, offenses, which wasn't there before, trying to mitigate our risks so that when we're in a situation like we have been in the past, we're able to recover the costs for the municipality to go in and clean up where the property owner may not be doing that appropriately. So we've learned from our past and implemented something a little bit more, some more teeth.
Further questions on the bylaw? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Great job.
Unless there are any further items from the members on this particular committee, we'll now move into
I have
corporate.
Councillor Peters.
Thanks, Your Worship. Under new business to Kevin, and not necessarily looking for an answer tonight, but it's been great to see all the crosswalks go in downtown. I think it has significantly reduced the number of interblock people crossing streets. I don't know if it's just me, and maybe it's under the Highway Traffic Act, why we have yellow flashing lights. But there are times where I notice driving, it's difficult to see that those lights are flashing. And again, it might be my own eyes, but it's something I observed as recently as this afternoon. It was like suddenly I saw those yellow lights, and if there's something that brighter that could catch your attention better, but maybe there's a reason for yellow.
Mr. Dealeybeck?
Through the mayor to Councillor Peters, I do know that it's the Ontario Traffic Manual that prescribes the rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which is the yellow flashings that you see. But I'd be happy to connect with you afterwards and maybe go and see the site that you're talking about, because maybe there's something else with like the sun or something that might be affecting that piece, if that's okay with you.
I, like Councillor Peters, have also noticed they're making an incredible difference in the downtown as to how many people are using the crosswalk, specifically the Whistle Stop Trail crosswalk. So much so that I'm now saying, I've kind of got to wait at Ross Street. I might not make the intersection because of the cars. I think that's a safety issue that is really good, that we're having that many people using the corner crosswalks or the designated crosswalks instead of just wandering around downtown. Please do wander. It's okay, but use the crosswalks across the street. Thank you. Anything else under infrastructure?
Next we
Seeing that?
move, sorry, was that okay?
Yeah.
Next, we move into corporate governance and administration. First item relates to provincial gas tax. I have a motion that report TR 0724 relating to provincial gas tax be received for information. And further, the council approve the preparation of bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign a letter of agreement with the Ministry of Transportation for the transfer of provincial gas tax revenues to the city. Moved by Councillor Kohler, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
There's no further items for this committee. Council will now reconvene into regular session. I have a motion that the recommendations, directions, and actions of council and committee of the whole as recorded in the minutes of this date be confirmed, ratified, and adopted. Moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor McCauley.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next, we move into reports of committees. Item before us this evening relates to unbudgeted operating expenditure for funding of a joint DDB and EDC shared service agreement. I have a motion that report EDC 0224 relating to an unbudgeted operating expenditure for funding of a joint DDB and EDC shared service agreement be received for information, and further that council approve the previously unbudgeted annual operating expenditure of $60,000 to the EDC prorated for the remainder of the 2024 budget year. Moved by Councillor McCauley, seconded by Councillor Wookey.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next, we move into petitions and communications. First item is a copy of a letter addressed to the MPP of Prince Edward Hastings and Hastings Lennox Addington from the city of Belleville regarding support for family physicians. And the second item, notice has been received from the County of Elgin regarding the adoption of its official plan on May the 14th, 2024. Your worship, unless there are any items of petition from members of council, we'll now move into unfinished business of council. And seeing no items, new business of council.
Councillor Peters.
Thanks very much, your worship. I appreciate giving me this opportunity. This week marks the 80th anniversary of D-Day, June 6th, 1944. The massive invasion of Normandy began. And it's really the beginning of the end of the Second World War. And I just wanted to read a couple comments about, and I wore my Bruce Tartan tonight in commemoration of the Elgin Regiment. C Squadron of the Elgin Regiment under Major F.O. Lewis, Bear Lewis, was preparing for the invasion of Normandy. Its task was to supply armor to the 2nd Canadian Armored Brigade. Squadron had been stationed at Gosport, England, and had come under bombardment from the Luftwaffe. On June 4th, 1944, the squadron boarded ship, awaiting the order to move. They were well prepared and rehearsed for invasion. They were the masters of the art of waterproofing tanks and other vehicles against salt water, and every member of the tank crew was capable of assuming the driver's duty. On D-Day, June the 6th, the brigade crossed the channel as part of the greatest armada in history and began landing at Juno Beach near Bernier-sur-Mer. The Elgin Squadron was scheduled to go ashore on the 7th to send armored vehicle replacements to the front, but the changing tide delayed the landing until the early morning of the 8th. By this time, the brigade had suffered such heavy losses that the squadron immediately forwarded virtually all of its tanks as reinforcements. C Squadron continued to keep the brigade supplied with armor as it pushed through France. Major Lewis eventually became second in command of the regiment. And I just think it's important to recognize the men and women of Elgin County who played a part of giving the freedom that we enjoy today, that we can sit here collectively as a council. And I think it's important as a city that we say thank you and remember 80 years ago this Thursday. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, worship. Last Friday evening, I had the opportunity to attend the CASO 150-year anniversary. And it was fully packed. It wasn't an empty seat. Councillor Laura Baldwin Sands was there, Councillor Kohler, your worship, and myself. But I think if you want to know why we were the railway city, and we weren't the railroad city, we're the railway city, Council Peters made a great presentation for, he could have gone on for an hour. It was just so interesting to listen to, but anyway, I wanted him, thank him for that. It was really well done. So thank you.
Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you. Today at our health recruitment meeting, it was announced in open session, our 2024 Discovery Camp Scholarship recipients will be attending a one-week camp, and this is for high school students who are interested in entering the medical or healthcare field. The winners are Gautam Krishna, Aswina Kumar, Ellery Bilhart, Carter Hollingsworth, Tyson Hollingsworth, Victoria Hopper, Sloan Maudsley, and Sophia Green. We have presented 6 full and 1 partial scholarships. We will be doing a social media post, as will Elgin County, later this week to announce it to the community, our scholarship winners. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the scholarship update, but I'd like to also thank Councillor Baldwin Sands, and I think Councillor McCauley also, who spent last week with the physician recruitment team doing some excellent visits from medical students into our community. I am sad I was not able to make any event of last week, but I know you guys held down the fort well, and it went well. So thank you for the efforts you put in last week too. Councillor Gibson.
Oh, yes, I just want to say thank you to everybody who came out and visited the Municipal Accessibility Open House on Saturday. It was a fantastic outcome, and I would just like to say thank you to city staff, the JAC committee, and the MAC committee, and everyone that came out to visit. I'm just going to generalize counselors, because believe it or not, we actually had counselors that came from Elgin County. It was awesome to really see. So thank you to everybody that came out today, and congratulations to Lori. She won one of our door prizes.
Excellent job. Yes. Never mind. One last thing is we have a book launch this Saturday between 11 and 1 at our library for our canine puppy. Well, he's no longer a puppy, but Trax. Trax was one of our first police service dogs, and Constable Sean James has written a book about Trax, and that book launches this Saturday at our library. So please, if you can go to the book signing, and I can't come up with a dog joke right now, so please search it out. Thanks. 11 till 1. Councillor Clark.
Is track signing?
No, he's brought his paw. Never mind, bad.
Rough joke.
All right, that's all I have, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. If there's no further items, we'll now move into bylaws. I have a motion that leave be granted to bring in the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Herbert. Seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
I have a motion by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands, that the bylaws be now read a first time, referred to council and committee of the whole, and read a second time.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
First bylaw.
First bylaw is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on June 3rd, 2024.
Questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Carried. Second bylaw, please.
Second bylaw is a bylaw to amend bylaw 45-89, being a bylaw to revise and consolidate certain bylaws relating to traffic and parking of motor vehicles. This relates to stop signs on Center Street.
Questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Carried. Next bylaw.
Third bylaw is a bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and His Majesty the King in Right of Ontario, as represented by the Ministry of Transportation. This relates to dedicated gas tax funds for public transportation.
Questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I rise and report the successful passing of the three bylaws.
I have a motion by Counselor Herbert, seconded by Counselor Baldwin Sands, that the report of council and committee of the whole on the three bylaws be received and adopted. The same be read a third time, engrossed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and numbered.
Questions or comments? And then all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next, we move into public notice. The corporation hereby provides notice of its intention to adopt bylaws to establish 2024 property tax ratios and property tax rates at its meeting to be held on Monday, June the 10th at 5 p.m. The council meeting will be available to the public in person or on Zoom and can be accessed through the city's website. No notices of motion. There is a need to move into closed session this evening. I've motioned that this meeting be closed to deal with a proposed or pending acquisition of land, to deal with commercial or financial information supplied in confidence to the municipality, which if disclosed could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization. And finally, about a personal matter about an identifiable individual. Moved by Councillor McCauley, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Before I call for the vote, I'll remind those at home watching and those here that we will now be moving into a closed session. We'll only exit the closed session in order to adjourn our meeting tonight or pass anything that happens in the closed session. So all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.